All right, welcome back to the channel, guys. Um, this episode, we are going to now weather our archer. Going to do it in a couple different stages. First being, I have a couple different options for chipping. This is something I haven't truly, actually, since recording this, have found in effect a way of doing it that I like much better than what I'm about to do in this video, but this video is more of or this segment of this video will be more of the traditional options for chipping, which is going to include obviously just brush painting, but then obviously the age-old like sponge chipping. Now, sponge chipping to me it's just been sloppy. It's easy to layer too much on. The basic premise, and I'm just using an old piece of foam that I have. The basic premise is you apply the chipping color, which I have from Ammo by Mig, to a sponge. Blot it off on a piece of paper towel until there's more or less nothing left, and then just splotch it onto edges of the vehicle, handles, any raised surface really, to get a kind of randomized pattern. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that here. The only problem is it's easy to get a little too much in some sections. So that's why it was never always my favorite technique. It is a widely used technique, but I recently I ordered some of AK's pencils in the chipping color. I also got their paint marker in the chipping color, which the color is phenomenal. It's just the marker is way too big. I don't know in what use case I'll use it yet, but then I finally ordered it's just called chipping hard lead. I got it from Andy's Hobby headquarters from the man himself. That is probably it's honestly just like a pencil without any wood, and it goes on very very well. You can take it off if you need to, but once you varnish coat and seal it in, it is in there. So I combined that with chipping effects. Just putting basically a primer layer under, doing that, and then going over for a second chipping color with that chipping lead. And I thought that was much more successful than this, but this turned out okay. I thought. I'm always hard on myself. Um, Probably a good thing in this hobby, maybe a bad thing, I don't know. But we'll get some more sponge chipping. We'll also do some brush chipping, and we'll get this vehicle chipped up again. Highlight the raised edges, the areas that would, get a little bit more wear and tear, maybe where the crew's stepping, things like that, and we'll move on to the next step. And here, real quick, we're just going to complement the sponge chipping that we did, obviously with a very fine brush. And I have that chipping color from Ammo by Mig, so really just highlighting, maybe possible areas that were missed, going over, maybe making some longer scratches. Side the sponge chipping obviously gives you, you know, high areas of wear and tear. This will give you, I don't know, you pass too close to a tree limb and it, scratch the tank, something like that, right? Drop one of the tools and created a big scratch. So important to do it with the brush as well to get a little bit of variation, but then also kind of go over. Sometimes you don't want a bunch of chips. Sometimes it's important, I think, just to highlight some of those raised edges and things and give a little bit of variance to the color of the tank. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that everywhere too. All right, next up we have our aluminum colored pencil from AK. So this will be the primarily interior chipping. Wanted to give the ground, a little bit of that metallic kind of look. Um, also on some of the raised panel lines. Now, I put it on pretty heavy. Um, these types of effects with the chipping as well, and with the pencil, it depends how heavily you're going to weather beyond this step. I have a lot of chips in there because based on the last time I did this, um, 75% of them kind of get muddied out. So it looks like a lot right now, but make sure you're planning ahead. You know what you're going to do. If you put this many chips in and then lightly weathered it, you'd see most of them. If you heavily weather it, you won't see most of them and it'll kind of blend nicely. So um, those pencils I think are great. Obviously, you know, maybe some colors are better than others, but I love the metallic color, the aluminum and those kind of colors for highlighting tracks, doing these chips on the interior, things like that. So we'll go ahead, we'll finish up some raised edges here and move on to the next. All right, next up we're gonna look to. I didn't want to do too much dust here. Um, the instructions label it as a vehicle in northwestern Europe, so I do like to have some layers. And this is like it's like cooking, right? Like building flavors and layers. So we're gonna want to build colors and layers and things like that. So just taking a dust wash and going around the inside, figured the inside might be a little bit more dusty than the outside. So we don't apply this color to the outside at all. I'm just getting a little bit kind of against some of those raised pieces and in the nooks and crannies, um, everything like that to make sure that we have a nice dirty look inside without it being again over the top. Once we put the figures in, you won't see a lot of it. So I guess it's just for my own fun, but we'll get that applied and keep moving. All right, now probably the most, well, maybe not the most important part, but one of the most important parts. If you didn't feel like doing a ton of weathering, um, let's say you only wanted to use 2 or 3 products, we're going to do a pin wash. This is probably the most important thing that you can do on your kit. It's probably the thing that after one step of doing, you'll look at your kit and say, wow, that looks good. Um, Kind of stands out the most. So we're going to start on the interior, but this is, same as any wash, any enamel wash, or I guess acrylics too, but I primarily use those Ammo by Mig and some AK enamel products. So we're just going to put it into all the nooks and crannies this time. Unlike the dust wash that we kind of randomized and put in corners, we're going to use this on every single raised surface. I'm going to be extra careful on the interior just because there's not a ton of room to operate. So I don't want to have to do a lot of cleanup. Um, you don't always have to do cleanup. Sometimes they can emulate, oil stains or grease or, just grime in general. But, on an interior like this, I'd be a little bit more careful. On the outside, you can be a little bit more liberal with your use of it and really let it um, let the product work. You know, Meaning let it flow. Um, so there's always a good balance of not wanting to use too much, but also put enough on your brush that when you tap that panel line, it flows. You know, maybe a couple inches, maybe an inch out of that, into that panel line. You'll get much better results that way, and while you'll have to clean up a little bit, you'll have to clean up less probably overall than dragging your brush down the whole thing, as I'm doing here. But wanted to get that box to have some raised 3D quality to it. I know it is 3D, but I think you know what I mean. So we'll go ahead. We'll apply our pin wash inside and out, and we'll take a look at how it turns out. All right, and here's just a quick example, a little bit more visual, and how we want to apply these washes. So again, panel lines, let it really flow. And then in the next step, we're going to come back, and I have the MIG odorless enamel thinner, which is a great product. It's not smelly, right? So essentially what we're going to do, if you get too much somewhere, is we're just going to wet a brush, kind of dry it a little bit on the paper towel, and essentially just brush it off. It's something that makes this product great. You have to make sure that you do clear coat over your acrylic paint, because that thinner will take everything off that's under it. Be careful going around decals. Honestly, just avoid cleanup around decals if you can, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll take a look at the next step, and we'll do a little. All right, so again, to clean up, and now make sure you keep, once you dip your brush in the enamel thinner, again, blot it on the paper towel, but then make sure that you keep um, blotting your brush on that paper towel as you remove the enamel product. What's happening is your brush is obviously absent of paint. So as you go over some of these surfaces to clean it up, your brush is picking up that paint. So eventually, if you don't, kind of clean your brush, what you're going to end up doing is just, moving around that enamel product rather than continuously absorbing it, which can be an effect of its own if you're streaking or something like that. But when you're just trying to clean it up a little bit, you know, this is the technique that we're going to use. We're going to make sure not to press heavily in the panel lines and around, some of the raised edges, but some of the flatter parts is what I'm concentrating on right now. Some of the kind of little, polka dots that you create throughout your tank when blot on that panel liner. Yes, it flows, but where you blotted it is usually a pretty good little round circle. So just blending that, removing those, that sort of thing, and we'll keep moving here. All right, so what we're going to go ahead and do next, we have some medium soil and other soil tones from MIG's oil brushers. It's been a big focus of mine to get better and to use oils more frequently. So we're going to they function honestly very similarly to all the enamel products. The big benefit is they actually blend. Enamels do blend a little bit, but the oil is never like truly gone unless you really wipe it away. So once you put it on, it provides that nice kind of filtered look. It will flow into crevices. So we're going to go ahead. We put that all, along the interior, and we do end up removing quite a bit of it, but trying to more or less stain the interior. So, and then next up, we're going to essentially do the same thing. We're going to put on fresh engine, oil stains, fuel stains, that sort of thing. Provides a nice, it doesn't have to be engine oil or fuel. It ends up just looking like wet grime, which so it can be used in a multitude of applications, but just trying again to get a little bit of variance on the inside, a little bit of stain built up on the inside, um, doing it over the soil color. And you can do the same. So if you applied pigments or something like that, doing the fuel stain on top, one makes the dirt or mud effects, look wet. But it also makes it look like, something's leaking out and staining that mud that was already there. So gives it some nice variance. And so we're going to go ahead and blot a couple pieces on the inside. And all right, so one of the most important things about working with oils and enamels for that matter, but even more so oils. They take a very long time to dry, at least a couple hours before they're truly dry. The longer you can wait, no, I say that, and this hobby is patience is hard to come by. We want to get to the next step. So if you can do it overnight, let them dry overnight. That's the best. So what we're going to do is we're going to move on to the tracks, um, which in the last installment we painted Tamiya's dark armor, or sorry, dark iron. And I realized the other day I'm going to start saying Tamiya. That's how I've always said it, since as far back as I can remember. Um, since watching, other people on YouTube, most notably Andy and Champion Scale Modeling, they say Tamiya. But then I've heard, 10 other mispronunciations of it. So I'm not sure anyone outside of Japan really knows how it's supposed to be said. And I haven't heard someone from there say it. So I'm going to go back. You can tell me in the comments if you hate me saying Tamiya. But we are using MIG's Trax Wash right now. So this is going to give it a nice reddish kind of tone. If you want a really clean track look, you know, this is obviously going to muddy it up a little bit, but this is a really nice, I guess, prerequisite for either mud and or rust. Um, Especially if you combine it with MIG's Rusty Tracks color, for tracks that are going to go on the side of the vehicle. If you really want to show them rusted, it's a really great base to get that started. So we're going to apply this wash. This is more of a sludge wash rather than a pin wash that we're putting on here. Um, Again, make sure everything is sealed up there, but we want this to flow into all the nooks and crannies. Um, More or less change the color of the tracks because the dark iron is a great color. It's just very bright, right? So we want to dull that down a little bit here. All right, you see we moved it over to a box. The tracks can get pretty dirty there. Um, there we got our exhaust in its various weathering stages. It's something I've yet to. I think I did find a good solution to it, um, which we'll show later or in another video. But on to maybe my favorite part of weathering, doing some streaking grime. I strayed away from streaking rust on this vehicle. While, we do obviously oftentimes strive for realism in our models, I find that there's also a balance of what looks good. And for some reason, I don't love the way that rust looks on a green vehicle. I find that it's one thing to do it in panel lines, not panel lines, but around hinges and things like that. But when it's streaked down the side of a vehicle, when it's green, I don't know. It looks phenomenal on like winter camo, for example, right? It really stands out and blends into the paint. But um, I've done it on all my other green vehicles. I figured, we would stray away from it this time and see how the finished product looks. So what we're doing with the streak and grime is obviously starting at the top, trying not to blot it on like I did earlier, and that huge that huge mark. But um, we want to more or less create, what the effects are going to look like. This part, to be honest, isn't doesn't have to be as probably as delicate as I'm making it look here. Well, depends if you think I'm making it delicate or not. But um, what we're gonna do is put that on all of the kind of vertical areas. We're gonna let that, we'll call it half dry. You can let it fully dry if you want. You can, honestly, I've had the same kind of effect doing it almost immediately. But we're going to then, bring it down with a, I don't know what the what the brush is called, but it's kind of like a feathering brush. Like it's got different heights of bristles. So we'll keep applying this streaking grime, and we'll let it dry, and we'll go on to making it actually look like something. All right, so here we go. We have it again, maybe half dried at this point. That's the brush I'm talking about. The name is escaping me, but that's not the important part. So what we're going to do is we're going to wet that in the enamel thinner. And then I like to start working lower and going higher as I am there. Um, I found oftentimes if you pull from the top first, what you're going to do is you're going to have a great streaking effect halfway down the panel. You're going to lose a lot of that kind of grime at the top, which is where, the top and bottom is where you're going to have probably the most. Obviously, gravity is going to pull it out of the top, but it's where it's starting, and where maybe some of that staining is kind of pulled up the most. So start at the bottom and kind of work your way up while always, um, you know, bringing it down. Now I'm doing a little cleanup as well. So obviously that's a horizontal panel. I didn't want that streaking grime there, but that just shows that all of these products that you put on can really be taken off. That is why enamels and oils are popular. I, I believe in this hobby. So we'll keep feathering this down until we get um, a nice look, and do this, with some patience. As I say, it's hard to find in this hobby. You can always go back and do more. Once this is dry and you seal it in, you can't go back. So make sure that, you're happy with the look. Um, Definitely let it dry after kind of this stage. Once you kind of bring those effects down, that way you can see what you're left with. And again, there's plenty of times I remove too much and I go back and I add more. You can also do a different color, to kind of have different streaking effects in there. It doesn't need to be the streaking grime color. Um, I know Meg has like streaking grime for winter vehicles. There's regular streaking grime. You can just do this with a wash. Um, See that dark wash I used for, or the wash for dark green vehicles, whatever it's called. It's got almost like a reddish brownish tint to it. So that can be a great product to use for this as well. Um, yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll keep making these streaking effects and see how it turns out. All right. So as I say, I didn't use any rust. I didn't use any rust in the upper portion of the vehicle. But what we're kind of experimenting with right now. I know that I'm gonna cover this up later on down the line, but what we're going to experiment with right now is building with oils, um, more or less a stained color palette under, the mud and dirt effects that are going to go behind the track. So, pro tip that I did not do. I can't fully comprehend why I didn't attach the top to the bottom yet. Probably to fit the tracks was my initial, because they are obviously, as you can see, not on here yet. But when you go over, the right side, if you're, watching this, of the tracks, at least from this perspective, you can access the interior. So you have to be very, very careful that you don't, if you're doing this right where the brush is, that you don't, push over that edge, because it will bleed into the interior. So we're going to go over some rust and then some different soil effects with oils first, and really blend those into you know, that green color to honestly try to change it, make it look a little bit more stained, and give ourselves a nice canvas to kind of weather on the bottom half of the vehicle there. All right, now we'll take a look at how that turned out. I did the same technique as the streaking grime, and we'll take a look at adding three different enamel products. So these are all, different kinds of mud basically. Um, Maybe I have four there if I can count. Um, I don't think I ended up using the splash effect because I didn't want it to look too wet. Um, Again, the vehicle said it was Northwestern Europe. I think the exact location and everything is undisclosed. So um, it was either the spring or fall. So going to be some form of mud. Um, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with the darkest color at the bottom. Now, this is probably the easiest way. It's using three products. So maybe not the easiest, but this is a very easy way to get some good color variation behind your tracks, in the wheel well and everything. But we're going to start with the darkest color at the bottom. We're going to go medium color in the middle, and then we're going to do the lighter color up top. Now, really, the only caveat to that statement is we're going to do all three colors um, above the tracks, right? In that section where things are going to splash up into there. But once we get all of those colors on here, our goal is going to be to, again, use enamel odorless thinner. And instead of brushing it down, we're just going to soak the wheel well in thinner, let it, we'll call it 70% dry, and then we're going to use a dry brush and try to blend it downward to make it look like, yes, stuff is getting caked in there, but it's also get some of that cracking effect of, dirt and mud that has been caked on there for, a couple days or weeks or whatever. That's starting to crack, it's starting to fall down, gravity's doing its job. So we'll go ahead and we'll get that all built up in there and see what it looks like. All right, so next we have, I believe this is turned earth or heavy earth. I think turned earth went on last. But we're gonna do this in the middle. So we're gonna have, and we're gonna try to blend it over the dark color that we have on the bottom. Really, the goal is for the dark color to be more or less the bottom, right? Bottom color of the hull that's going to get exposed the most. And as we kind of move up vertically, it's going to be a little bit drier. It's further away from the wet ground, right? So we'll go ahead and this is I guess this is my oldest. This is my worst brush, but it has proven itself to be a very great applicator for for this application when applying mud and stuff. Um, they don't make them like this. You gotta work to get a brush like that. But we'll go ahead. We'll put that on and then add the third. I think it's turned earth is the third that we use. All right. So it turns out turned earth was the second one that we used. Thick soil, which is the lightest, is going to be our third and final step of mud. So we'll go ahead and again we're going to apply that to just the highest surfaces there. We're going to let, you know, well, we're not even going to let these three really dry, honestly. Maybe for an hour. They'll be halfway dry, and then we'll put some thinner in there. All right. So next, and I'm going to do this with this thicker brush. Um, it holds more thinner, and my goal here is to get good amount of thinner in there. The more that's in there, obviously, the longer it's going to do its job. And giving it a really gentle brush downward while also making sure to really soak that enamel product. Again, I'm going to look for cracks, things like that, let it kind of drip downward and bring that product downward. And at the same time, what we're going to do is try to clean up the road wheels while we have that thinner on there. We don't want them totally clean. We still want them a little bit dirty. But on a vehicle that is, moving, which I guess the scene with the figures that we're given is maybe it just pulled up and it's about to fire, right? So it just drove somewhere. Um, Road wheels are generally somewhat clean. One of the cleaner things, maybe the cleanest thing you'll find on the bottom of the tank. So we're going to try to do our best to clean it up a little bit. And then I do apologize. There was one last stage of weathering that we did to this vehicle, which was applying pigments. And as hard as I took me, multiple days to try to get these videos to upload, and the file somehow got corrupted. So we don't have the application of pigment. Um, we have the final product. We just don't have, I'll end up doing it in the next video, and many more, but do apologize for that. We do miss that one step. Um, but essentially we just let this dry. We let this dry overnight, and you can already see it's starting to kind of clean some of the areas. And then we are left with this as our final product. So I ended up putting some pigments on the bottom, for some of that fresh dirt look. We have the caked on mud, and then we use the pigments to kind of show that final layer of kicked up dirt. I also went through and essentially just applying the pigments dry to the kit, and then Ammo's pigment fixer. You can also use the enamel thinner. I've had good success doing that before. I have the pigment fixer, so I use that. But I ended up also it was also there. There were 3 videos that were lost. The third video shows the exhaust there. I had just gotten, it is the standard rust enamel like wash from AK Interactive that I applied to that exhaust, and it's bright. I also applied it to the tracks. It's definitely bright, but it looks good. Artistically, it brings some nice color to more or less kind of a monotonous vehicle, right? It's green everywhere. It's got all the dirt, the same dirt color everywhere. We got the crew, in place. 2 of them are glued up. There's only like one clear piece that goes on at the end. We got the tow cables hooked up. So, hope you guys enjoyed, the entire building review, painting, and now weathering process. Um, Let me know what you think in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing a ton of building, if that's something that you like. And we're going to do a lot of trial and error. There'll probably be plenty of error, and there'll be some good successes that come out of it too. So let me know what you guys think of the final build. Anything at all. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll leave you with the final look for the last minute here. But thanks again.